Hello, Internet! Hope everybody had a happy new year and celebrated whatever winter holiday struck their convictions most acutely. Hope everybody got to sit around and do jack shit for a while if that's what you're into. Oh, there's Boogie. For the first topic of the year, we're going to talk about that Warriors-Rockets game that happened on January 3rd. I'm sure a lot of you guys watched that one, and I want to talk about it, specifically James Harden. Let's go! First, I should admit that I turned this one off early to play Red Dead. I just couldn't help it. I swear this happens to me every single time that I turn off a game, but inevitably I got a text from a friend saying, "Oh my god, did you see that?" or "Holy crap, Harden." And I realized that I've made a mistake. Never fails. The Warriors led for the majority of this game. They trailed the Rockets at 5-4, and the Rockets didn't take the lead again until 4 minutes and 17 seconds left in overtime. So that's a pretty big stretch to be trailing. The halves were nearly mirror images of one another, with the Warriors winning the first and second quarters by 12 and 5, and the Rockets taking the third and fourth quarters by 11 and 6. There were 8 lead changes and 7 ties in this one. This game was a great example of how volume three-point shooting can overcome statistical discrepancies, as the Warriors won the majority of the counting stat categories, but the Rockets made more threes and free throws and crawled by the defending champs at the finish line. This game featured the top 3 per game scores in the league, with Harden, Curry, and Durant, although Durant didn't shoot super well in this one and couldn't really totally get it going. Steph Curry was doing his "even if I shoot it poorly, I still might hit the dagger" thing, where you can't relax at all, even if he's not hot from 3. Overall, Steph was 14 of 27 from the field for 35 points, but he was 5 of 15 from 3. He was steadily stirring the drink for Golden State, and he might have had 50 if he'd been feeling it from 3. Klay Thompson was efficient on a healthy but not indulgent helping of shots, hitting on 11 of 20 from the field and 4 of 8 from 3. He actually was matched up with Harden on 36.7% of the possessions in this game. Houston had a much shorter rotation in this one because of their injuries to Chris Paul and Eric Gordon, so we actually got to see people like Brandon Knight. I'd forgotten what he looked like. Austin Rivers actually had a pretty good game. Daniel House and Gerald Green all gave solid minutes orbiting the gravitational pull of Harden, and the Rockets hung around long enough for Harden to make one of the nastiest game winners in recent memory. A straight up deep toe-to-toe three-point heave with 2 of the better defenders in basketball bearing down on him. He then gave Draymond a motherfucker that will likely echo across the plains of basketball history. All right, we need to talk about James Harden, and we're going to do that right now. In his past 10 games for the shorthanded Rockets, James Harden has scored over 35 every single time, with 6 of those eclipsing the 40-point mark. He's carried an enormous weight on his shoulders. At 6'5" and 220 pounds, with good but not jaw-dropping athleticism, Harden is one of the more infuriating players to guard in the NBA. For a lot of people, myself often included, full transparency, he can also be one of the more infuriating players to watch in the NBA. At first glance, you could see why that would be the case. He's rarely in top gear or overpowering anyone or dazzling us in transition with a high wire act. It's just not what we're accustomed to seeing from stars. Granted, yes, Harden does turn the ball over a fair bit, but it's typically because Mike D'Antoni encourages his teams to cast a wide net offensively and to play without fear or consequences as a result of being aggressive. This thinking has burned D'Antoni on occasion, but to play with reservation would be to go against their greatest weapon, the brilliant, methodical offensive mind of James Harden. James is a great demonstration of something that I like to call offensive bandwidth, where someone like Zaza Pachulia might be comparable to 56K dial-up. Harden is like a T3 line connected via Ethernet cord in, I don't know, the Pentagon. He's able to make high-level basketball decisions in real time and quickly. This is only possible for the most skilled basketball players in the world. Even when pressured heavily, and Harden draws more defensive pressure than a vast majority of the league, he's able to survey a majority of the floor and more often than not make a play. This is the highest level of offensive skill in my opinion. I've touched on this a little bit in the past, but because of Harden's elite ball skills, there's very little that an individual or help defender can do to disrupt the level at which he makes decisions. A lot of the great playmakers of all time have had this quality. LeBron is on this level. Chris Paul is starting to see some decline, but is still for the most part on this level. Jonathan Sharks of The Ringer, in a really good article, correctly identified Devin Booker and Luka Doncic as guys that are ready to carry this mantle for the future. Trae Young could be another if things shake out correctly. Harden's able to do this because of the fear that he instills in the defense, and he understands this and utilizes it to his advantage. If he were a below-average ball handler, physically weak, physically small, or not a threat to score from anywhere inside 35 feet, the tools at his disposal would be less sharp. Want to drop the defender guarding the screen? He's got bonkers range and he's got the ultimate green light. Want to switch everything? He'll meticulously find the switch that he likes and exploit it. Want to get up in him and chase him off the line? He's one of the most proficient and maddening foul-drawing players ever to play. Want to blitz him in the pick and roll? Even when he's goaded into picking up his dribble, he's masterful at threading the needle to Clint Capella, one of the best hard rollers to the rim in the world. And if you bring additional help to stop that, like the Warriors did occasionally on Friday night, he can fool you with his eyes and find open shooters. You're picking your poison, and that's a fatiguing mental state to be in for 35 minutes. So no, it's not pretty all the time. It's herky-jerky, it's start-stop, it's angular, it's unlike just about anything we've seen, but good God, is it masterful. It reminds me of this clip I saw one time of Billy Mitchell, the legendary and now shamed arcade player who knew how to essentially control the ghosts in Pac-Man. He knows the patterns of the game so well that he can drop in and out of them whenever he chooses to. He keeps the opponent in a prison that's dictated by the construct of the game, and that's exactly what James Harden does. It's largely about speed. In a game where Harden's usage rate was over 40%, which is what he's averaging for the season, which is tops in the league, he went for a triple-double and dragged the Rockets to a win against the best team in the league. And he had the slowest average speed of any player in the game at 3.66 miles per hour. That is third slowest in the league regardless of minutes or games played. That's slower than Marc Gasol. That's slower than Dirk at 40 years old. That's slower than one of the songs from Sigur Rós Parentheses album. One of my favorite parts of Harden's game is his repeated between the legs dribble. Yes, in general it just looks good, but I love it because of the way he freezes the entire defense with it. Next time the Rockets play, watch this move and watch the eyes of the entire defense. He puts them in purgatory, fixated on the chance to save themselves and dreading the rotational hell that he could possibly be bringing them next. January 3rd is going to go down as one of the great nights in Harden's career, and for good reason. He was utterly phenomenal. For the Warriors, there are so many pieces that are floating around their optimal places that it's hard to know if they're going to be able to run the baton across the finish line one more time. So much could change if Clay gradually works himself back towards normalcy, and the strategy of we're going to gas you 3 times and then shiv you 50 times worked a year ago, so it could very well work again. All of that is compounded by the fact that Boogie Cousins is just sitting over there like a bear in the weeds. And as much as people love the idea of parity returning to the NBA, it's still hard to imagine the Warriors losing. But this feels like it could be the last time that they just romp to a title. Also difficult to know is if Harden can sustain this level of production for the rest of the season. And if he comes close, Giannis will have an increasingly smaller margin of error if he hopes to snag his first MVP. Harden was on a tear prior to CP3 going down, but the three-point attempts have really gone through the roof after December 20th when Paul's injury occurred against the Heat. Even though he's not physically taxing himself on offense the way a high-motored mile-a-minute guy might, Harden is still burning a lot of calories with the way he's constantly engaged in the decision-making of each game. Since the Rockets have to win now, who do you guys think would be worth targeting if you're Daryl Morey? Did this game say more about the Rockets or the Warriors? Could someone please explain to me why this bird murdered this person at this camp that I walked up on in Red Dead 2? Hit me up and let me know. Peace. Hey folks, I appreciate you watching, and if you like this video, click the like button and be sure to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter at JKyleMan. Say hey.